Praise the Lord. This is Dr. C. Dexter Wise III, and welcome back to another edition of the video version of Everyday with Dr. Wise, where you get a mighty message in about 3 minutes or less. Well, we're continuing our series entitled Trick or Trick, where we are looking at and lifting up several of the tricks of the devil that we find in Genesis chapter 3, and there are many of them. And today the trick we're going to talk about is that he makes you hide. The devil makes you hide. As soon as sin comes, there is shame, there is guilt, there is a sense of nakedness, there's a sense of inadequacy, and he makes you hide. The first thing we see here is that he made Adam and Eve hide from themselves. Nobody was around but themselves, and they sewed together fig leaves to hide themselves from each other. They'd been naked all this time, never even thought about it. But when sin comes in, it causes us to put up a false front. It causes us to cover. It causes us not to be ourselves. It causes us to hide. So the first thing that happened was he caused them to hide themselves from each other. Then it caused them to hide themselves from facing God. They didn't want to face God. When they heard God walking in the cool of the garden, first thing they did was they hid themselves. They didn't want to look at God. How do you want to look at God after you know that you've sinned? How do you want to go to God when you know that you've broken his law? So what it does is it forces us, it forces you and me to hide from the face of God, to hide from facing God. We don't want to see God. We don't want to hear God. We don't be anywhere near God. And then thirdly, and I think perhaps worse than that, is that when he comes and forces us to hide, we hide from fellowship with God. That's worse than just not being in his face. That's worse than hiding from each other. That means that the fellowship, the friendship, the camaraderie, the communion, the unity that they used to have before sin, they didn't have anymore. And so now when they hid from God, they hid from the possibility, they hid from the enjoyment of that fellowship. And when sin comes into our life, when the devil tricks us, he ruptures that fellowship and causes us to lose the very thing that can make us what he wants us to be. So when he comes, don't make him make you hide, because that's just a trick of the devil. Don't hide from God. Run to God, because even though you have trespassed against his law, he's the only one that can bring you back. Don't you dare fall for that trick. Trust God.